My name is Marylin Sievert, and I was born January 18th, 1928. This is 2020, and I'm 92 years old. My ancestry is mixed. I'm a little bit of everything. My family's been in the country going back to the Revolutionary War. My grandfather was in the Civil War. After the war, he and his brothers, they lived in Georgia, and the West was opening up. So he and his brothers all moved out to Missouri and homesteaded in Missouri. And my grandfather moved from Missouri down to Oklahoma when Oklahoma was opened up. And they homesteaded in Oklahoma. And then when New Mexico opened up for homestead, they moved to New Mexico. But he had used his homestead, his wife's homestead, and his homestead. So my mother, who was 18 at the time, they homesteaded in her name, and that's how she came to have a homestead in New Mexico. My father was Tom Wesley Johnston, and my mother's name is Ida M. Little. She grew up in New Mexico and went to normal school. That was what they considered college in those days, was a school teacher. And then later on, the senator from New Mexico, after it was made a state, chose her to come with him to Washington, D.C. They met at an opera, and that's about all I know about their meeting. I was born in Chicago during the Depression, and my dad was working for the Chicago Tribune. He was a linotype operator and lost his job. So they decided to move back on the farm there in New Mexico. Well, my mother passed away when I was about 5 years old, so I don't have a lot of memories of her. But my dad raised us, and so he was the big stay in our life, the lives of my sisters and myself. And he was as steady as a rock. He went to work every day at the same time and came home every day at the same time. All of us girls admire and loved him very much. Yes, I had an older sister, Virginia. She was 4 years older than myself. And I had a younger sister, Helen, 5 years younger than myself. I was the middle child. I hung out with Virginia. I think my dad let me go places and encouraged my going with Virginia as kind of a chaperone. He figured as I would be a tattletale, and so I went with the older kids quite a bit of my life. Good things and bad things about that. I liked it. And Virginia, she looked over me a lot more than I realized at the time. Helen was younger. We looked after her, but I didn't pal around with her very much until we were adults, and then we became very close. And when we came to San Diego, my dad put us in Sunday school and church right away. My dad was looking for a place where we could live in. Finally found that with my lady who became my stepmother later on. But she was a widow, was looking to make a living in the midst of the Depression through the church. She heard about this family that was looking for a place to board and someone to keep the kids, housekeep. So she offered her home, and then we stayed with, we called her Auntie Vera. And she was our housekeeper for many years. And eventually she and Daddy married, and she was a good woman. My dad wanted us always to remember our mother. So Auntie Vera never had the power of punishment or anything like that. Her role really was as a housekeeper and not as a mother. She never was free to mother us. And that was too bad. But my dad did a great job of raising us girls, dedicated his life to that. They were good years, but they were during World War II mostly. We were here in San Diego, a Navy town, and it was flooded with all kinds of service personnel, men and boys everywhere. We girls went horseback riding one time and met some Marines, young men from Indiana. My sister started dating one of those boys, ultimately married him. Why, they found a young Marine that had lied about his age. They brought him along for me. I married him, and his name was Tom Smith. He was a very charming guy, and lots of fun. A little bit on the racy side, you know, things that would appeal to a young girl. He served overseas for a long period of time, and I'm sure that had an effect on him, because when he returned, why, he was restless, changed jobs frequently. He was discharged after World War II, but he was a reserve Marine. So he was called up at the beginning of the Korean War, and within 30 days of his call-up, he was on a ship headed overseas. I had run away from home and was living and working in Los Angeles. And so there was no family around. And he returned from overseas. The Salvation Army put on a wedding for us. They found a best man, and they did a nice little wedding for us. 16. I was 16 years old when I ran away, and when I married Tom Smith. So that probably explains a lot. I had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. The oldest was Richard Mark. We called him Dick. And then my daughter was the middle child, Suzanne. Then my youngest son was Thomas Franklin Jr. I'm proud of my kids. Suzanne worked her way through college, did a good job, went on, got her master's, has had quite a career working. I'm proud of her. And Frank has had a lot of difficulty that he's overcome in life. He was in service at Vietnam, has suffered from Agent Orange, and he's come out of it very well. And he's had 6 children, and he's a good man. Sue and Frank both are God-fearing children, and I'm proud of them. Richard got mixed up in drugs right after high school. For the past 30 years, I've just lost touch with him. I don't know where he is or what's happened to him, and that's been a real sad part of my life. I've worried about that. I've hired detectives to locate him from time to time, but they could trace him so far, but nothing recent. He was talented and bright, and he would come home from time to time, and we would buy him clothes, and maybe he'd get a job for a few weeks or something like that. So we kept in touch with him that way. He would come and go. But then he left one time, and we never returned, and no one ever heard of him over 30 years ago. I was a single mother for a while. They were toddlers. I had to put them in daycare, and I had no automobile, so we rode the streetcars about 6:30 in the morning to take them to the daycare, and then ride the bus back to work in order to get there at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that was tough. We finally moved close to where I worked, and we walked. We lived in the Italian neighborhood, and so I could walk them to daycare, and also I could walk on to work. I didn't finish high school. When I went to work, I discovered San Diego City College. I was so impressed that I could get a college education. At that time, it was free of charge. I think I had to buy a student body ticket for $12 or something like that. And I thought how marvelous it was, because I could learn and support my family. I went and learned shorthand, which was a skill in those days, and became a secretary. I continued on with my education when I worked for a John Burnham company in the real estate department. Why, I took real estate courses, eventually got my real estate license, got 2 years of college in. That's as far as I went, but I was working with a partner while I had my own real estate office. So my message for my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and any great-great-grandchildren that come along is that education is the key. Education is the key. Not only do you earn more money, usually, not always, but usually, but it opens the world to you, and you can enjoy the world and enjoy your life through your knowledge that you've achieved in education. He was a gem, yes. My sister Helen was single, and we were all in our 40s, I guess. At that time, there was a lot of single clubs here in San Diego, and at this time there were about three of us, my sister Helen and a girlfriend and me, and we went to this lecture. And after the speaker spoke, they had served some refreshments. There was mingling, and I got to talking to this guy, and then he said, "Would you like to go out for a drink afterwards?" And I said, "Well, I came with a couple of girlfriends, but we're going out for coffee. Would you be interested in joining?" And he said yes. So he did join us for coffee, and we all had a good visit there. And as we were breaking up, he said, "I'd like to have your telephone numbers." He said, "I've enjoyed the evening." So we all gave him our telephone numbers. I didn't receive a call right away, but later on I did. I don't know whether I was the first one or the second one or the third one he called, but he called, and we eventually started dating. And that's how I met him. He was a rock. He was a quiet guy. He didn't say a lot. He could do anything. He could fix anything. He enjoyed art and airplanes. He started building an airplane, got it about halfway built and sold it. He was innovative. He would invent little things. He was creative. I admired him. He was a good guy. We were married about 33 years. He had a type of cancer, blood, was diagnosed with it. He lived about 9 months, I guess, afterwards. Would have to go in for blood transfusions periodically. But other than that, he lived at home, so that was a blessing. I retired in 1980s, so I've been retired a long time. I completely retired about 2000, I guess. Before I came here, I was driving, and I volunteered. And when I stopped driving, well, then I couldn't volunteer. I expressed that feeling that I wondered if there was anything that I could do. And so they've given me little notes, and I'm to write notes, and I'm doing that. And I enjoy that. I would like to do something useful. I can remember as a little girl thinking it would be great to live to be 100. But as I grew older, I really didn't take that seriously. And the older I got, the more seriously I took it. I might make it. I don't know. My health has been pretty darn good. I've lived a moderate life. My dad, he was kind of a health nut. We were taught as youngsters to eat one thing at a time. So for dinner, we ate our salad first, and then we ate our vegetables, and then we could eat our meat and potatoes, and then dessert afterwards, if we ate our salad and our vegetable and our meat and potatoes. And he exercised. I can remember he would do push-ups on the floor and everything like that. And so I've gotten in the habit. I exercise pretty regularly, not always, but off and on I've exercised. And so I think I've been kind of maybe a little more health conscious than a lot of people. Well, I started square dancing with Howard Knight. One of his postal worker friends was a square dancer. And so we started square dancing then. It was quite the go, a biggie among a lot of people. There were big clubs all over San Diego. And then when Howard and I broke up, I continued square dancing. And I was square dancing when I met Glenn Sievert, and he learned to square dance. He hadn't, I guess he had tried it a little bit before, and so we continued square dancing for many years. It's fun. It's just fun. I was dancing until just before I came to Lantern Crest, and they're kind of they're not very vital. The clubs are hanging on, but they're hanging on. I hope my children will remember me as a good parent because I wanted to be, and that I raised them well. That's enough. I would be pleased with that if people liked me and enjoyed me and thought I was a good person. That's good enough. I have had a good life. I've enjoyed every portion, and from each of my marriages, I've learned and I've grown as a result of them. I had good parents. My dad was as solid as a rock, dependable. He devoted his life to us. And my mother, although I don't remember a lot about her, the things that I was told and the life that she gave us, my few memories are wonderful. And Auntie Vera, she was a good woman. I didn't appreciate her as much as a child. What child appreciates his parents? I didn't. But she was good to us, and she devoted her life to us too. We were lucky. I've had good family. I've had good sisters and their families, and children. My children have been attentive and caring, and I love them, every one. And Richard, I love him too. I'm proud of my family. I'm proud of my nieces and nephews. and their families too. I've enjoyed them. We've stuck together. We've had good times. We've helped each other grow and keep up the good work, family. Grandkids, you've been a special joy to me. I've enjoyed each one of you, and I love you all.